meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining and welcome to the Hill Tech Society Business and Innovation session. We're happy to have you join us today for those who are live and will also view this later. So we're looking forward to the session. I'm Talfa Harris with Sustainable. Sustainable features an intelligent business helper called Ada, who monitors your business health and also suggests actions to help you meet your business goals. So if you'd like to use Ada, you can sign up for free at sustainable.io. And we've also been working with the Hill CDC to facilitate these Hill Tech Society sessions in an effort to ensure that the Hill District is connected to the thriving and emerging innovation and tech economy. So with that being said, I would like to introduce Marimba Millones, President and CEO of the Hill CDC, and then we'll speak with our honored guest, Carnellia Ajasin. So Marimba, thanks for having us on.
Thank you, Talfa, and welcome, Carnellia. I am really excited to be here. My name is Marimba Millones, and the Hill CDC is really an organization focused on the revitalization of the Hill District neighborhood. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Hill District, it is the 1,100-acre neighborhood between two of Pennsylvania's top economic generators of downtown Pittsburgh and the University District. When we think of revitalizing the Hill District, we think of a number of things. We think of cultural preservation, we think of housing, we think of commerce. And because of our location, we also think of innovation. And so Hill Tech Society is really rooted in the idea of connecting the Hill District to the innovation community and to the learning community and to the University District of Oakland and to the broader ecosystem here in Pittsburgh, which is thriving, as you mentioned, Talfa. And so we're really committed to ensuring that the people of the Hill District have opportunities to upskill and or to launch businesses in the innovation space and or to grow their businesses in the innovation space. And we want that to happen right here in our neighborhood. We don't think you should have to leave your neighborhood in order to be successful in this kind of space. You may have to bridge, you may have to go to other places and connect, but we want you to bring those resources right back to this very important neighborhood that is called the Hill District. So thank you, really excited for the conversation. And I'll point it over to you, Carnellia. Well, I think Talfa, maybe you're gonna do an introduction. I'll give it back to you.
Yes, well, I did want to touch on the genesis. So you talked about the Hill CDC vision, you talked about the purpose of the Hill Tech Society. Can you talk more about the genesis of the Hill Tech Society?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it goes, pretty far back. I actually got into community development because of my work in tech. And so I started as an intern in the city of Pittsburgh's Information Systems Department. And that's where I learned about just the incredible opportunities that exist for people who have technology skills. And I was wondering why there weren't more people in my community who were talking about at the time C++ and COBOL and JavaScript and all of those things. And there was just, I mean, these folks were earning, a very, very solid wage 15 years ago plus. And I was just like, we've got to bring this technology and these resources to our community. And it just wasn't there. So I came up to pitch an idea to the then executive director of the Hill CDC. He ended up recruiting me to the board. The rest is history. So in some ways, just getting back to that work. But the more recent is an event that we had in 2016 where we connected to innovation leaders, creatives, foundation leaders, entrepreneurs, and really began to think about what could happen on the third floor of the New Granada Theater as we are renovating that building. And out of that session just came so many incredible ideas. Of course, really continuing to think about how we connect to the broader innovation economy. And so Hill Tech Society is really anchored in that work. And we continue to be thankful to all of those people who contributed to some of that early stage work.
Great. Well, I'm excited to be a part of it. So thank you.
And we're excited to have you as a part.
Thanks for the work you do. Okay, so with that, let's introduce our speaker. So Carnellia Ajasin is a serial entrepreneur, investor, and strategist building the new economy one that centers around sustainability innovation, which I love, regenerative technology enabled products, and humanity. And as CEO of Mind Catalyst is a tech innovation and sustainable venture studio, which invests and works with corporations and entrepreneurs to identify, pilot, and scale tech-enabled products. These products are focused on sustainability and innovation that advance both business and purpose. Carnella, who is passionate about developing humanity-centered tech-enabled products and establishing access to funding pipelines, is also an investor with Portfolio, a woman-led venture capital investment fund. And Mind Catalyst Venture Studio takes a unique approach to investing by focusing on technology-enabled and data-driven companies that are committed to creating products that are humanity-centered. I love this theme. And in addressing this innovation and sustainable development goals, she has extensive and diverse background in transforming spaces with purposeful technology innovation. And this executive began her career rising to senior roles in management consulting companies such as Oracle, Ernst & Young, and Capgemini and chief product officer for growth stage startups around the world, leading international teams through enterprise-wide technological services in North America and Europe. That is a lot. So, Carnilla, we are happy to have you, and thanks for bringing all of this expertise to the Hill District.
Thank you so much for having me. I really see this as an honor. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks. So with that context and info, we're excited to have this conversation with you before jumping into the presentation. So as you know, we're going to ask 5 questions before getting started. So ready?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the first one, how did you get into technology?
Wow. My mother majored in computer science at Temple University in Philadelphia. And so, of course, around our house, we had code cards. And back then it was code cards and things of that nature all around the house growing up. And so, there was a lot of conversation about technology. We had a lot of technology. We had a lot of, I think I remember when we got our VIC-24 computer. And we were kind of learning, hyperlink programming at that time. Um, and playing Pong, things like that. But really old stuff, back in the day, Space Invaders, and so technology is a really big part of my upbringing and my background. So, and as a teenager, and I'm like, I just want to be by myself. I don't want to talk to anybody. Antisocial, just locked in my room with the computers, right? And so, really trying to see all that I can do with it. And so, and I was very artistic also. And so I love painting, I love design, that kind of thing. But back then, when I went to college, you know, computer science was straight computer science. It was just coding. It had nothing to do with user interface design or anything UX, UI, none of those things. Um, so by the time I got to graduate school, then it was the introduction of human computer interaction, and then also sorry, buddings of UX. It wasn't the name UX, but it was about the interface and what it was going to look like. And so those types of classes, those types of kind of design element of how people were going to engage with the technology was something that was really interesting to me. The coding was the coding, you had to do the coding, but I was equally interested in learning how to better the experience of the user. How was that experience going to look like and feel like when they were engaging with the technology? And I think that was the artistic side of me that was kind of bringing those two elements together. So yes, that's how I got into it. And then also too, when I was in college, I think I had taken my first database class as a freshman, and I got a job at a law firm. And he had a database, and some guy was, helping him create a database for all his legal files. And he felt he was being swindled by that particular guy who had been in IT for many, many years. And he asked me to take a look at his database. Of course, I just taken the class in database management. And it was kind of a basic database that he was developing for him. And then, you just have to do the data entry work. And so then he fired that guy and told me that to take that over. So I did that until I graduated from college. And so I was kind of got into it, while I was in college. So it was a very interesting opportunity.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges and or barriers that you face as a woman and or a person of color, specifically as a Black woman, in technology and or the innovation space?
Yes, of course. There's many opportunities, many challenges in that sense. I guess the usual challenges is that, most people don't see Black women as technologists, right, nor innovators, which I find to be an oxymoron because as people of color, um, we are innovation. I mean, that's just a part of our DNA, which people fail to forget that that's what we do. We invent, we create, we invent and create things that are not even thought about, and have done so for decades. That's just who we are as individuals on this planet. Um, and so the challenges is that I understand that, I know that, and I'm confident about that. And then when I'm in a space or places in spaces that do not understand, you know, the assignment that we have as Black people and innovative, it's like, who does she think she is? Because I'm walking in like, I know who I am, but you need to find out. You're going to learn today, like that kind of situation. So then you're seen as, aggressive and all the words that we know, that are attributed to us, as opposed to the words that truly are part of who we are. And so even when trying to move up to higher levels of corporate America, it was a lot of that kind of pushback, like, oh, okay, you're not ready yet. I've been doing this since I was in high school, right? My mother was also a computer scientist. So if nobody else, then, but what I did learn is that if computer science is really not about, just the science itself, but it's about really applying yourself. So you know, the challenges that I have faced were about, really just not really understanding and wanting to see a Black woman in that position or role. It's more, I should be seeing an Asian or an Indian person, or, they have more credibility and intellect as it relates to these things. But it's just being a part of those spaces and places and being in sort of supportive environments that does understand, that helps you get into those rooms. And I think in those points, you should, and I have taken up space instead of cowering in the corner because I didn't get the validation from somebody else in the room saying that I belong here. I made that initiation myself that I belong here and spoke out when I needed to speak up.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we all have to do that. I don't care
Yeah,
whatever what profession you're in. You don't look for validation from anyone else in the industry. You just give yourself the validation that you need.
absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so I think you hit on a little bit about the things to focus on, and that's a tip to do personally. So tell us more. What are three things people should focus on to prepare for this work in this space, either as a skilled worker or an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I would say as a skilled worker, again, it goes back to the experience that I had. I had taken one class during a semester, and it gave me some, I felt, basics, right? But then I got a job where, or I got put into a job where I can actually practice what I was learning, right? And so I think, to me, that doesn't go away, right? Like, if you want to get into AI, if you want to get into um, blockchain, or virtual reality, augmented reality, it's really about educating yourself and then putting yourself in these spaces and places where you have an opportunity to practice and to be around other people who also have the skill set to help you glean and get that knowledge base and the support that you need academically, so you can actually learn it as you're doing. I also at one point volunteered with an organization called Europe, and it's for minority students who don't really want to go to college, but they just want to kind of just learn technology, IT, and go back right into the industry as opposed to going to college for 4 or 5 years or whatever. Um, and I got an opportunity to see that these students were exceptionally smart, right? It's just that they're like, I'm not going to college for 4 years. I'm going to, like I did accidentally, I'm going to learn and do. And so that's what they did. They took some classes, took their own initiatives, learn their own, and then got internships with companies at, entry level positions. Many of those, as you know, who were more versed to apply themselves more than others, went way up through the ladder, right? Because they were able to kind of teach themselves, learn what they were doing, take advantage of the networking opportunities, to partner with people who were already in the profession, ask them questions, find mentors, advisors, things of that nature. So taking advantage of those types of opportunities, put yourself in those opportunities, and being a lifelong learner, and then developing a network of mentors, to me would be a wonderful opportunity for you to a pathway to get into the space, because you really don't at this stage of life and where technology is with learning online and all the instruments and all the tools that you have available to you. You really don't have to go to a four-year college if that's not what you want to do to acquire these skill sets. Technology changes at lightning speed, right? So um, it's really worth your time to learn about AI, right? Understand which element of AI that you want to be involved in. Do you want to be involved in quantum computing, which is going to be also related to AI in the very near future? So really understanding technology and how it all fits together, and then also thinking about what part of that do you want to do? Do you want to do more of the coding side? Are you more of a strategist? Are you more of a product manager? Are you more of a coder, developer? And then start doing that and learning about these industries, and get yourself a mentor, a coach, a learning coach, to help you to navigate the career path. I would say if you were an entrepreneur and starting to develop your product, um, to again be in the spaces of other tech related entrepreneurs, as well as entrepreneurs in the industry. So it may be a tech company that you're wanting to create, but it may be in the medical field, or maybe in the fintech field. So get in those networking environments that can help you to meld those two worlds together, and start learning about what that process looks like. Understand what it takes to go from an idea in your head to an MVP, right? Market fit product. I had a meeting with a investor company a couple weeks ago, and it's because I'm an advisor for a lot of the startups, and they got funded for like $15 million, but they have never tested their. They don't have a full MVP right now, right? They never tested their product right now with any users. But so to them, oh no, we don't need to be mentored anymore because we have $15 million. But what they fail to understand is that there's a lot of companies in the autonomous vehicle industry, which is what they did, who have $15 million in funded, $50 million, $100 million, and they burned through that money, and today they're out of business. So getting your little $15 million does not mean success. It means that you were able to convince that one person who doesn't know anything about how products go from idea to MVP to market fit, what that process looks like. They don't understand that. All they heard was autonomous vehicles, and we know that that's going to be the future. And they gave you that money. You were lucky, but then you don't know how are you going to then take that $15 million and turn it into 15 of diluted investment money to $15 million in revenue. Two different things, right? One means success, one means you may be successful and you may not. So those are the things that they just didn't understand. So sometimes I say that I'm in the business of bad news, because a lot of times I'm like, okay, your baby is born, but it's not that cute. Like, even though you got that $15 million, it don't mean that your baby is cute, right? Like you have to really, you know, let's make that diluted revenue, that diluted investment money, turn it into income revenue. Then we're talking about something here that's tangible. So my advice is that to really understand, even if you're an entrepreneur, understand what those things mean. Look at the companies that are in the same space as you that have failed, and study them just as much as you study those who have been successful, and see what did they do wrong. Because chances are you might become the next one. Okay. So that's my advice there.
You dropping gems over here. Okay.
Truly.
You can't let these things uh, make you arrogant about something that you.
Yeah.
It's sad because it's like they don't know what they don't know, and that's so sad, to me.
That is our tagline. That is our sustainable tagline. You don't know what you don't. Cool. So you mentioned a little bit about networking, and how does that, what is the importance of building a personal brand while networking in tech?
Yeah. So your personal brand, everybody should have a personal brand, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if and even if you're not in tech right now, you still have a personal brand. Like you have your philosophy about life, you have the things that you're interested in your own your own professional life itself. You have an academic background, you have a professional background. That's your brand. Like, so, and then what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What are your values, your principles? That's the makeup of your brand. And so to me, everybody should have and build upon their brand. And then as you're building and learning and acquiring new knowledge base, you're adding to your brand. You're kind of fleshing your brand out more entirely, so that people can really see the kind of the evolution of who you are and what your brand stands for. And so to me, your brand is very, very important. And I don't think that's something you should minimize or overlook as you are building your personal portfolio.
Great. Okay, well, today we know you're going to be talking about a few things. So for these things, we're just going to go through and as like a short elevator statement, tell us what it is and why it's important. So first, we're going to be talking about understanding your business purpose and value to customers, this like value proposition and problem statement. So what is that and why is it important?
Well, the purpose of this particular webinar is really to talk about um, determining how viable your product is before you spend time, money, and energy in that, right? Or before you get a non-dilutive investment amount from someone without really validating what they gave you money for. Like, because you need to know that first. Like, is it even worth the time? So many people have ideas, right? And some are great ideas, some are not so great ideas. Well, before you start investing a lot of time, because typically an entrepreneur is going to spend at least 5 years of their life in developing a particular product. Remember just mentioned that I think she said in 2016 was that meeting that she had, and this is now 2023. So a lot has happened between that first meeting that she had talking about the renovation of that building till today. So she spent a lot of those times, I mean, a lot of years in her life investing in this, right? But you want to do it in a smart way, right? You want to make sure that the time you're spending is viable, that it actually is going to materialize into something that's worth your efforts. And so that's what we're talking about today.
Okay. So we're also talking about tools and methods to collect this customer feedback, how to get customer feedback and test it. Why is it important to use multiple methods to get customer feedback?
Yeah. So getting customer feedback is essential and using the different methods to do so. Because if you don't have customer feedback, you don't know if the product is even something that people will reach into their pockets to pay you for. Many people don't realize or forget that, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, when they first launched these websites or apps, they didn't look anything like they look today, right? In the past. But what made them evolve into what we know them to look like and function today is our feedback. My feedback, your feedback, our complaints, which I find to be vitamins, because the complaints are what people wish it did and what it doesn't do. And it's like those are things that you didn't think about, right? And so then and if it's enough people, if the numbers of people if it's 80% of your population is saying, I wish that you had more, your website had more blue in it than other colors, then obviously it's a problem for some people who maybe have some issues around, their visual issues around color and how they perceive your brand. And so it may be something you may want to look into. So, but if you're not getting that feedback from your customers or your users, then you're not operating from a data driven perspective, and everything that you do, every every way that every decision that you make in terms of your product evolution should be data driven. And so customer feedback and whatever tools that you choose to use in doing that allows you to be more data driven, which is a insight and a smarter way to build products.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for these insightful responses. And it's great to have this intro conversation with you. But now, Marimba, unless you have anything else to add, would love to turn it over to you and let you take it away with this presentation.
All right. Well,
Nella, I just want to say thank you one more time. We're so grateful to have someone with your level of experience and passion for supporting Black entrepreneurs, Black folks in this space in particular. It's just incredible. And so during Women's History Month, it's just super appropriate to have you here.
I forgot
Also,
the
yes,
month was
it
so
is.
much.
It is. It is. So with no further ado, we are looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you are you pulling it up, Taliba?
You have your presentation. Um,
I can pull. I mean, you gonna pull
you can
up or
pull it up. Yep, you can feel free to pull it up.
oh, okay. Let me. Okay, I wasn't. Kidding me. I'm sorry, let me get off. I don't want to.
You're totally fine.
I thought you guys were gonna.
We
Let's see.
were, but
I,
I felt it was probably going to be easier for you to navigate it.
oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. I can do it. Just find it. All right. I'm gonna share my screen. Hmm.
Is it allowing you to share?
Uh, one sec. Okay, here it is now. Sorry, everybody. We go back. I can see it. Here we go. Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. And can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, hello again. I'm Carnellia Ajasin, and we're talking about the viable product. So, I'm happy for everybody to join me today. Um, this is really about people coming up with the next big idea or the next big win. And I would say that you can apply these same mechanisms for not just a product idea, but even if you have a service, if you're thinking about a career, all types of things that this can be applied to, the same process. So let's get started. So I don't want to go back into a lot that was already said about me, but I am a CEO of Mind Catalyst and started this company way back in 2009. And my background is in management consulting, worked for big six, well, I guess it's big four now, consulting companies, and have worked in Europe, North America, as well as South America, and also parts of Africa, South Africa in particular. So I help startups, I help small businesses, universities, help growth stage startup entrepreneurs. I also have a number of mentees that are uh, going to college or millennials or not in college who are deciding what are they going to want to do with their careers, and also help them as well. So A lot of people have ideas. And so where do you start? And so for me, the starting point should always be where the pain is, right? Where are the pain points? Whether it's your product idea or your career, where are you struggling, right? And so we talk about a product, we may be looking at, what is the issue that a user may have that they're trying to resolve that pain or relieve themselves from that pain point. So we want to make it personal to people. So this is something that a lot of my clients also struggle with. So we have a ton of ideas. We want to build upon something, but we don't know how to move forward with that idea in terms of launching. Or if you have an idea, you want to figure out, like, should I even execute on this idea? Is it even worth my time to even execute on this idea? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So the methodology for me, there's a ton of methodologies, right? And so there's design thinking, and I don't know how many people have thought or heard about design thinking, but it's a pretty um, long-term, significant methodology that's been around for a very long time. There's lean startup. There's something called mom testing. There's also Google design sprints. There's many different methodologies, and for me personally, because I've used a lot of them in my previous work before starting my own business, I've actually taken a little bit of all of them and have worked with many of those in terms of helping clients to come up with their MVPs. I see that as no one, I feel no one size fits all, and there's value in having a multitude of relatable methodologies that can help you to move the needle in terms of creating your minimal viable product. And so the two concepts for here that we're talking about right now is your design thinking as well as the minimal viable product. So a great way to determine when and how to apply design thinking to your product idea is for idea validations. Design thinking is about bringing together empathy and experimentation into the product and the software building process. So when we say empathy, people think empathy. Why is empathy part of technology? Well, empathy is a huge part of technology because you have to become empathetic to the user who's going to be using the product that you're building, right? And empathy meaning you're not supposed to, as a product developer, uh, go in the corner with your friends and come up with this idea that you have for a product, and then you build the whole thing out. You do all the coding, all the design work, because you and your four friends, although you may be brilliant, come up with this wonderful idea for a product. You've not tested with any user, but the product is now finished and you're ready to present it to the world. Like, that's not how it works. That says that you have no empathy for the end user, because why? They weren't even engaged, right? The only people that were engaged is you and your friends. And so empathy for the user is engaging them from the very beginning and having them be a part of the process, because they're going to give you some valuable information about what you have assumed about the user that maybe you have assumed incorrectly, right? Or maybe you have overlooked because you're not the user. You can't possibly think of all of the nuances and all of the problems and all the ways in which various users may think about your product, right? They're the ones using the product. So, and they're the ones who are going to pay you for your product. So you want their input, you want their feedback, you want to be empathetic to their perspective of your product. So you want to make sure that they're part of the process of experimentation while you're building. It allows you to also anticipate what future customers want from the very beginning of your product ideation. But if they're not part of that process, you are really doing the disservice to your product totally by not engaging them and not including them. So when we talk about minimal viable product, um, this is also necessary because we want to also, what we want to make sure is that we have a product that is really just capturing just the bare minimal, right? You're not going to go out and build the entire product, right? No user input, none of those things have been included, and then you spent time, money, energy into this without engaging any customers. So when the customer is engaged, then or you're getting feedback from customers, and then they come up with all these different ideas that are completely opposite of what you expected. That's a waste of your time, your money, your energy, because you did not do a viable minimal viable product, which is we call also an MVP. You've put too much time and energy into it, so now you have to undo a lot of that unnecessary work that you've already done, which is completely a total waste of your time, right? And your money and your energy. So you want to make sure that you're just doing the bare minimal, right? You're just doing maybe you're just creating 1 to 2 features. If it's an order management system or e-commerce website, maybe they can just select an item that they want to purchase and buy it, right? And that's it. That's the only thing that you would do with that product, and then get some feedback on that. What was your process like? How did you experience this app, this software? You know, were the pictures displaying the products suitable for you? Were they too small? Could when you went through the payment process, what was that like? Getting that feedback from those customers is essential so that you can tweak it along the way in an incremental way, in an iterative way, not having to do build out too many features of functionality, and then you have like a whole laundry list of items that people are not really feeling based on your product that you've created and spent all this time on. So this is the bare necessity of what you need to build out a really solid, profitable product. And so what we want to avoid is entrepreneurs adding unnecessary concepts and things of that nature that are not relevant to your users. Because at the end of the day, who are you really creating the product for? You or your potential customers, right? And you can't possibly, and I have to reiterate that because I say that a lot in a lot of my meetings, that you can't possibly think of all the problems that let's say 50 users can come up with when they're engaging in the process. So the $1 million question is, um, you have two principles we just mentioned: MVP and minimal viable product. I mean, a minimal viable product, as well as your design thinking process. Um, which one helps you to build out a product that will do something that will be viable for your clients? And I would say that it's the combination. So because the combination of design thinking process helps you to build out a minimal viable product. And we do this by starting at the beginning and focusing on what's most important to your users. And again, that's why we say human-centered approach to building new products. With my company, we now say humanity-centered, because we're thinking not just the human themselves, but also just, when we're building a product, whether it's even if it's not even a technology product, physical technology, but we're talking about also physical products, right? Is that physical? Have you thought about how this particular product, what kind of footprint is it leaving on our environment, right? Have you thought about, the types of materials that you're using to build this particular product, even if it's not a tech product, even if it's a physical tech product, like an IoT, like an Internet of Things type of product? Had you thought about, how this particular product is going to be utilized when it's discarded? Is it going to be in some kind of landfill, or is it going to contaminate our environment further? Thinking about how is this particular product going to improve our humanity in our societies globally, or is it going to be something that is just for now and here and flashy and beautiful, right? And you don't care. It's an afterthought of how it's going to be utilized in our society later. So we've actually changed and pivoted um, since COVID on looking at it not being just a human-centered approach to building new products, but a humanity-centered. So we're looking at end to end, how does this product affect our lives, our health going forward? And believe it or not, even if it's a digital product, a software or an app, it can be affected even based on, is it racially diverse? Does it make people feel included? Is it inclusive? All of these things are part of sustainability. So these are things that you might want to think about as well as you're thinking about your career, as you're thinking about building a product, as you're thinking about, a slew of things around the tech space. Am I going into a career space where I am, you know, relevant, that's relevant to being sustainable. Am I looking at a career opportunity that is being in the tech sustainability space because I care about the environment? So think about those kinds of things. Or I care about inclusivity, like making sure that people feel included in the process that I'm going to be engaged in. So you might want to think about those kinds of things as well. So again, we talked about the bare bone necessities of building a minimum viable product and making sure that we're not over building and we're building in a very iterative way. And iterative meaning that we are building a very small piece of it, getting feedback, tweaking, making changes, modifications, improvements, and then putting it back out there again for users to then engage in and interact in with and also provide feedback with. So how do you go from product to having the real concept? Well, actually it goes the opposite way. You have an idea for a product, which is your concept, your idea, and then moving into coming up with the product itself. So what is the main benefits of the product, and who are the audiences that are going to be looking at or utilizing this particular idea? You need to make sure that your product is not, if it's going to be for a certain demographic, it should be for that demographic. Oftentimes I hear people say, I say, who is your customer? Oh, everybody's my customer. And that's like the wrong answer because no product is for everybody, right? And it's okay to be very explicit. I mean, it's okay to be explicit. It's okay to make sure that your product is really addressing the needs of the people that it's intended to be used by. You're not excluding, even if you are excluding users, that does not mean that your product won't be successful. There's a number of products on the market space today that are just for a very quote unquote small demographic. When I say small demographic, you may only have 5% of the market, but 5% is humongous compared to how large the market is. So you have to kind of think about, how much market do you want based on it's a relative number based on the large or the size of that particular market that you're dealing with. So what is the main benefit of your idea and to what audience? So you need to isolate what is it that your product is used for most and why. Before you worry about marketing, turnover, operations, etc., you need to identify what your application does that doesn't and or doesn't do for whom it's supposed to be intended to. This will help you to stay on track. You gotta, again, you want to make sure that that main feature or functionality of your product, what is that for? Again, you don't want it to be 50 different, 10 different things that the product does. You want it to be minimal viable product. You want to make sure that it does one to two things. I would say three might be pushing it, but you want to keep it very minimal, right? And why do you want to do that again? Because you want to make sure that you can control and you want to control the development of it, the pace of the development, and make sure that you're getting user feedback along the way. So we isolate, one feature first because we want to make sure that this is part of that whole design thinking process, right? Um, and that we talked about earlier. So we want to make sure again that we're staying in that whole space of creating a minimal viable product as opposed to just building the whole thing out. Again, this drives it home again that the product is really about your user, not you, right? And they, I don't know how the saying goes, but it's not about you. Like it really isn't. It really ain't about you. Like it's about your users, right? And some people don't like to hear that. A lot of entrepreneurs don't like to hear that. I'm at a conference right now in the Savannah, and one of the other mentors here was telling us that um, he mentioned to one of the entrepreneurs who just newly got into the tech space and creating a new tech product. And he got really upset, turned over a table, walk out the room, because to him, the product was about him, not his users. And so, at the end of the day, it is about the user, not you. And even though that person doesn't want to hear that, eventually he will see that when he puts the product out in the market space, because people only buy what they know, like, trust, and what is useful for them. If the product is not going to be of use to you, then why are you buying it, right? You're not going to buy something that's going to be useless to you. And so he will see that true and true once he gets the product out to the market space. And this is the key area that I always ask all of my clients and any potential customers. Like, when they first say, "Hey, I have a new product idea," or "I have a new career," or I have an idea that I want to, something I want to do." And my question to them is, what problem are you solving? So whether you are a professional going into technology, or you're a entrepreneur and you want to create a new business, what problem are you solving? What problem is your business going to solve? What problem is you being in that career space? Are you focused on solving? You building a new product. What problem does that product solve? And for whom is the other question that I have after that. That's my secondary question. So that's something you should always ask yourself. When you're going into these new spaces, what problem am I solving here? A big mistake that I see a lot of entrepreneurs make is the map out, that they think the biggest um, user is dumbfounded. Like, oh, users don't know anything, or my customers don't know anything. I know it all. I can tell them what they need, and that's not necessarily true, right? Like, people are not stupid, right? They know what they need, and they're not going to pay for money. They're not going to pay money out of their hard earned money with a product, or for a product that they don't need, right? They're going to pay for what they need and they want. And so it will behoove you to listen to them and engage them to make them part of that process. Because once you know the problem that you're solving for, then you have a very valuable tool that most people want. And that's the sweet spot that you want to actually be in. So once you identify the problem, you need to look at how your concept will solve that problem. So while focusing on this, you'll also want to see if that problem is targeted to the user that you had in mind. So going out and talking to prospective users would be beneficial at this stage of the process. Uh, so it also helps you to understand not only those users' needs, but also what do they really want. Because sometimes when you're actually talking to a customer saying, "Hey, this is an idea of a product that I'm actually creating," and the customer may come out and say, what about, it may even be a cookie. I have a client who even has a cookie company, right? And so we're helping her to develop an e-commerce website for her cookie company, which is it's actually macarons. So she's come up with this idea of all types of macarons that are, have banana puddings flavors macarons, and red velvet macarons, and all these different flavors that people had never heard of. Now we're working on the e-commerce development website for that. But most people, when they're actually ordering, they wanted to have, brighter, bigger pictures of the product, next to, the pricing points. So we're thinking that they're going to have, ask about, you know, just basic, e-commerce shopping online, but they're asking more detailed questions about other elements that we hadn't thought about. So those are things that we had to focus on and bring that as part of our design process. So again, it goes back to what we said earlier, that engaging your customers is really important so that you can bring about, um, the insight that they're actually going to be helping you to create a great product. And it just goes to our other question. So how much time will your user need to spend on your application or the problem that you're solving? How much money do they need to spend on your product itself? People aren't afraid to pay for things that solve problems for them. Like, we all can look at our own lives and say and really validate and confirm that. Like, we're not going to spend money on things that we don't really need and we don't really want, right? So look no further than Apple, Nike, Tiffany's, Dior bags, all these, well, even though you don't need it, you want it, right? In some cases, but you're going to pay premium price for things that you really want. So when you isolate these things, you can pinpoint how valuable your product is and appropriately put a price on it um, that's suitable for that particular price. When you're pricing products, you want to make sure that you're not, especially when you're out the gate, it's really not just about, oh, I've not done this much, I've not been in this space a long time, so therefore I shouldn't price it, at the same price as my competitors. It really depends on um, the functionality, the features. It also depends on branding. That's why branding is so important. Before you even start launching your product. That's why I feel everybody's brand is important and it should be worked on initially. Even if you're not even in the entrepreneur space, branding for you is really important as a professional in general. So it's not just putting out your LinkedIn profile. Make sure you really work on that LinkedIn profile. Highlight the things that you've done. In that first description, don't just have that be a resume, but have it be a space where you talk about your convictions about the profession that you're in, you know, and your principles and your values. That's part of your brand. So you want to hone in on how this product makes you unique and compare that to other products out there. And again, this speaks also volumes to you. How are you unique, right? Everybody here has their own interest. We all have our own ways of being. We all have our own value system. You know, be boldly proud of who you are and be okay with showing the world how unique you are. Again, I'm going back to, kind of flipping back and forth between the professional and also the product. Because for me personally, you are a product, right? In our accelerator, we have the physical, technology product that you're developing, and also the physical product you're developing. But we also talk about the product of you. That's actually the name of our course, like the product of you. And we utilize the same design thinking, lean startup methodologies in shaping what that looks like. Because to me, it's really no different than a technology product, right? Getting feedback, minimal viable product, getting people to talk to you, finding mentors, having people to give you feedback. Same process when you're talking about also yourself. Okay, so once you understand the necessary features, functionality, back to the product that you're making in terms of your product, then that helps you to stand out, and that will help your minimal viable product be more of value to your intended customers. It'll be like a dog whistle, where that particular customer for your product will know exactly that that product is for them. So the best MVPs are always well designed and to the point. There's a balance in creating a targeted, straightforward product that is also designed and executed well. But again, in order to do that, right, you have to along the way get feedback and input from your users. We're helping you along the way to make the tweaks and changes and edits as you evolve the product. Using big marketing buzzwords really doesn't do much, right? It doesn't really speak to what the product really does. Again, what really speaks to the product is how best does it fit the market space. If you were a professional in, let's say you're trying to get into technology and you're studying AI, for instance, and then we're going to go back to the personal side. So studying with one book, take one course, right? Get some feedback, go to a couple networking events, find a mentor. You know, that's being concise, that's being well designed in this space. That mentor is going to give you other resources, other contacts, other people to meet. So you're getting that feedback along the way. You're getting the opportunity to meet other people in the space. Same thing happens when you're building and developing an MVP product. It's an iterative process along the way where you're meeting people, getting feedback, getting input, tweaking, making changes along the way. That's what's going to make it go from concise and beautifully designed MVP in terms of a product that people actually find value in. So how do we find this? So again, this is just showing you an example of, going from one phase, kind of that MVP, kind of that kind of rudimentary sector to, you're actually building out a real system, with it that people can actually see the evolution from there. So how do we find this mysterious balance of complexity, but being concise and intuitive, yet beautiful and effective? Um, we start by narrowing down and focusing and picking up the small number of features in our MVP, and then we're going to execute them very, very well. Execution, of course, we already know there's no idea, on the planet that's it really isn't nothing until it's executed. Like, oh, I have this idea. That's great, right? But what have you done with that idea? Like, oh, I want to be in AI, or for an example, again, have you taken a course in it? Have you done some research online about it? How are you really moving yourself forward into that space, right? I feel very passionate about the fact that, when you put yourself in the spaces that you want to be in, that's the best way to start. You know, learning about it, researching about where you want to be, and then putting yourself in those network groups, those meetups, meeting those people, engaging with them. Same thing happens with a product. When you develop your product or building your MVP for your product, meeting people that can test it. Hey, will you take a look at my product and tell me what you think? You know, having an opportunity where people set up a website for people to sign up to test your product in a private space. Giving yourself an opportunity to get that feedback that's digitally, so you can actually look through and see what the comments were about it, and sort those out. You want to make sure that when you are evaluating the feedback, that it's, you're doing it in a quantitative method. So you want to make sure that you're looking at the numbers. Um, this particular feature, yeah, 20% of the people said that they like it. 80% of the people said they didn't. And then look at why, because some of those, maybe 20% of that 80%, are just people that just hating, or just not even really giving you any real good feedback. So you want to make sure that that's also something that you're thinking about. And again, you want quality over quantity. That's always the best measure. You want to make sure that the quality is there over the quantity of people, and also the features, again, that you're executing. That's why it's important to execute on 1 to 2, the max 3 features at a time, as opposed to building the whole thing out, because it's just a better way, smarter way to build winning and successful products. And this slide I put in there, I'm not one of those people who, uh, I don't suffer from fear of missing out or imposter syndrome or anything like that. I can't really relate to those kind of things, because I kind of know what I know, and I do what I want to do, and I'm confident in that. And what other people have to say about it, I'm not really concerned about that. But I think you should maybe adopt that attitude that, you want to do something and your heart is set on that, to go ahead and give it a shot. Shoot your shot. Not be afraid to do that. And that's our webinar. I'm here for questions. Any questions?
Um, let's see. I was monitoring the chat throughout, but I don't see any.
Yes. There are some questions. One of the questions, how much does it cost to develop an MVP?
Well, it depends, right? It depends on what you're developing. Um, if you're developing, because an MVP can mean many things, right? You may not even need it. May be something that can just be a website, versus a certain application. Um, in some cases, it may be something I wouldn't I wouldn't develop something in AI unless I was using maybe you'll use an API website as opposed to actually building out the real technology, right? Just to start out, I might build something in Bubble.io. If you want to go to the website, I might build that out, something like that first before I build the real thing out, right? And that'll be a much cheaper way to build an MVP than to actually build the technology out. So so to say how much is it? I mean, that's it really depends. It's a really relative question.
Got you. Me and my technical issues. Okay. The next question is how can I find a developer?
Oh, well, you can find developers anywhere. I mean, you can Fiverr and what's the other one? Upwork and um, your colleges, universities. Yeah, those are the areas you can find a developer.
Are there any organizations or social media accounts I should join or follow?
Yeah. I would say listen to some podcast shows that are out there in terms of technology. Um, let's see. Some of the ones I listen to. Oh, I have to give you a list of those. Some of the ones I listen to. Um, but yeah, there's a ton of podcast shows out there for technology that I think are really great. And also, I'm not really sure about in terms of tech books or anything like that, but I think the best place that I was my daughter when she first got into tech is to look at some meetup groups in your local areas, and so that's where I would start. And this because the thing is, putting yourself in the spaces and places where people are doing what you want to be doing, or doing what you're doing and you want to expand upon. Being around those people, right, will help you to open up doors and open up spaces and places that you hadn't even thought about because you're learning from the different people that are in those spaces.
Is that still applicable in like the viral, you know, stage of things now where someone can just drop something and it spreads like wildfire? And I'm thinking about just collecting a ton of user feedback at one time. Like, I know there's no magic sauce, but what are your thoughts about that?
Well, if to me, getting feedback should not be public, as far as I'm concerned, because you have to protect your IP, and you may not have your trademark or your copyright at that moment. You may not have the funds to do that, right? And so initially, it may be just have a private website set up for testing, right? People can only get access when you give them the code to get access, some kind of passcode to get into the space to do testing. Right? They can't take pictures of it. They can't. It has to be a controlled environment because you have to protect your IP because people do steal your ideas, right? And so you kind of have to put yourself in the position of protection, and also a safe space for people to test freely without feeling like they don't have all the information that they need in front of them.
And how do you balance? You made a good point about stealing. How do you balance the protection of your IP, just getting started out with pitching to venture capitalists, applying to government grants, and those types of things? And these people ask specifically, what is your IP? What is your secret sauce? And we all know like the likelihood of getting funded. What is that thin line to walk, and how does that look?
Yeah, that's hard because in as a venture capitalist myself, we're not going to sign no, they're not going to sign NDAs. They're not going to sign it. You're not going to get a venture capitalist, an angel investor. You're not going to get them to sign an NDA because we hear ideas every day, right? And then also even the government space. If you're doing SBIR or you're doing STTR, they're not going to sign NDAs either. You know, for me personally, it's really not about that. It's when you can protect your IP, do that, but you don't have to share the I mean, really, and really at the end of the day, the technology is not the secret sauce, right? Even when you're pitching your idea, to me, if somebody is harping on, like the guy last week that we met with, he kept saying that his product was, and it was AI. It's like, we were like, okay, you said that 50 times. Like, what problem are you solving? We don't care that it's AI. We got that. Okay, okay, it's AI. What problem are you solving, right? And for who? That's really that's your secret sauce, right? We're solving this problem for our customers in this way, and that way is unique and different and new and brand new, and that's like, wow, they're doing something completely different here. And they just, oh, and by the way, it's AI powered. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it should be presented. Not, you don't start with the technology, you start with the problem. That's what you start with, right? And so, and then people can, still, like, I've had a client who had a product that he was creating, and the developers that he found in India or wherever they were doing the 2 for 1. So he was paying them to develop his product, and they were building their product, copying off what they were creating for him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so then when the product was finished and he put it out in the market, guess what? They put their product in the same market. They're in India. His product was for Caribbean people. He was Caribbean, they're for Caribbean people. But they put the product out in his same market under a different name. So basically they were competing with him. So you
Wow.
got to be really careful with who you choose as developers, who you choose as investors, who you choose as mentors. So that, so now he came to us and he was like, I wish we met you 5 years ago. Because I mean, like, you know, if anything, we would say, okay, we want to co-own this with you, right? He knows that market. He's from that area. I'm not from that area. It would be better for us to co-own it with him because we're developing it for him than to do a 2 for 1 where he's paying us and we're building our own. Like, that's craziness. But these things happen. These things happen. So like I said, and now it's rebuilt. But the thing is, his product is taking off more so than theirs. Why? Because the branding is also there. That's why branding is huge. You can have the same product. Somebody can bite your idea and copy your idea, but they don't have your branding. They don't have your, like I said, they're not doing. They're not going to do it the way you're going to do it, right? Because he knows that industry. He knows that culture. He's of that culture. There's no way that they can't copy that. Like, it's not going to work. So,
another question: how much of accelerators and incubators and startup boost programs can you go through before it's like enough is enough?
Again, that really depends on you, how much you want to stomach. I mean, to me personally, if you're truly moving your product idea exponentially forward, then yeah. But if you're stagnated, you're just going from incubator to accelerator to if you're just doing that, going through the motion, and you're pretty much standing still. You started with 2 users, and 2 years later you got 10. I mean, what are you really doing? You're not an entrepreneur, right? You're not moving your business forward. You have no revenue. Um, you know, you kind of have to think in terms of, it has to be incremental. The goals that you're setting for yourself have to be incremental goals about how you're moving forward, how you are growing, how is your revenue growing. How do we utilize these investment non-dilutive funds to match that with revenue coming in? that's the key, right? We want money coming in, not just the non-dilutive investment dollars, but we want revenue. Because the more revenue you make, investors going to come to you, right? Because they know that you have something that's worth making, that's worth them investing more money into, because it's money coming in. So, yeah. So look at it that way. How are you growing? And the growth shows you what shows you what the growth is, how much revenue is coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to highlight again what you said. MVP tools, just using what's out there, DIY site builders. It's a lot lower barriers to entry now. So it just takes your mindset to get started, to just do it and start testing it. It's not as big as a learning curve as coding. So
No,
it's
because
so
you
much
can
easier.
your bubble.io MVP and even
Mhm,
get your first 50 customers from that, you know,
mhm.
right? You get your first 50 customers, revenue's coming in, right? Then you go to an investor, hey, we have 50 customers, 100 customers, whatever. They're paying us. That's a more attractive person than somebody over here who went to a developer. You know, they have 5 features, no customers, and never even tested with a real user. Like, like you're not, the other person to me is just a much smarter investment.
Yes. Okay. Javasha, am I missing any?
You're good on this end.
All right. Well, Carnella, anything else you want to add?
No, I need to run, but this has been great. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope I helped everyone, and if not, then feel free to send me an email. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yes, thank you, and to the Hill CDC team and to everyone who attended live. And for those that are viewing this later, we hope you gain the valuable information to apply to your own business. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me at telfa@sustainable.io, sustainible.o, the Hill CDC at programs@hillcdc.org or hilldistrict.org/Hill Tech Society, or Carnella at AJASINC@mycatalyst.com. I think I got that right.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Have a blessed day, everyone. Thanks, Carnella.
Thank you. Have a great night, guys.
You too.